Yes, ma'am.
Properties that have been painted 2 or 3 times, even though they're older, has it been encapsulated? And if it doesn't test positive?
Yeah, question is, does encapsulation matter? No. To test it, you have to score all the way down through the paint. The reason is that when you sand, or you pull out a window, or you demolish drywall, you demolish every layer of paint. Sanding goes right through to 6, 8, 10, all layers of paint. You can sand right down to the drywall very easily. So any disturbing of a paint, of a surface that is in target housing is assumed to have lead paint unless you prove otherwise. And it doesn't matter if it's not the top layer. All right, let's talk about some of these the ideas of how we go about performing the renovation. Now, as I said earlier, beg your pardon, the renovation, the idea of how the renovation is done is pretty straightforward. We are going to renovate in a way that gives notice to the people who might be living there, a tenant, for example, or the occupants of a home if a contractor is coming in to do the work. We're going to rope the area off, or we're going to seal the area off to a certain degree. We're going to put a notice up. We're going to give the occupant or the tenant a pamphlet that lets them know what's going on and what their rights are, and we'll see what they are in a minute. And we're going to conduct the renovation in a way that minimizes the discharge of the paint, the dust or particles into the air. We're going to clean it up, and then we're going to test it. Okay, that's the regimen. First, let's suppose you're painting an apartment or a house, and the tenant is there. All right, you have to give the tenant notice, not greater than 60 days from the time that you're going to do the work. In other words, you can't do it in the lease. We will paint sometime during the 2 years term of this lease. That doesn't work. You have to do it relatively contemporaneously with the time that the work is going to be done. So it can't be more than 60 days before the work is done. I think it's 30 to 60 days, or 2 weeks to 60 days. Now, the notice has to be accompanied by a pamphlet called Renovate Right. And it's the kind of pamphlet, it's available at the EPA website, www.epa.gov/lead. And you can print it right off, just as you print off the brochure that you give now about lead paint hazards that you have to give to your buyer if you're a buyer agent and you're dealing with target housing. You're very used to that pamphlet. Same kind of thing. It's available the same place. Okay? Renovate Right. Number 2, you have to put a notice up at the site. And that notice is according to the regulations, just a simple notice that says that lead paint renovation work is being done at this site, stay away. It's basically, just stay out of here, okay? You have to put a, kind of like a tape, like you see at a police crime scene. Yeah, a caution tape, so people just know to stay out. Just like you would see if you're washing the floors in a department store, they put tape or cones up or something. You do the same. Yes, sir. Do you mean a small apartment, do you have to put the renovation up on the outside?
On the inside for the other tenants. Or anybody coming in and out of the building.
No, you don't do it for a building. You do it for the unit.
For the unit, okay.
For the unit. You do it on the interior, assuming you're doing the interiors.
Then you don't have to give notice to all the other people.
No, the question is, do you have to do notice for the entire apartment building if you're doing one unit? No. It's for the unit. So you tape off the unit, you put a sign up for the benefit of the tenant. See, the idea is the tenant is going to be in the space when this stuff is being released into the air. You want to let them know that it's going to happen. You're going to minimize it. You're going to seal it off so they don't get inside where it's dusty and they can get it on their hands or their feet and track it around the house. Okay? Because one of these days a kid may be in there, and that's the idea. We're going to limit the amount of the stuff that gets spread around that kids can get on their hands. All right, so we're going to seal the space off, we're going to give a notice, we're going to hand a pamphlet out, and then we're going to do the work in a way that minimizes the release. Number 1, you use a HEPA vac when you do any sanding or demolition. Okay? HEPA vac is pretty well known in the mold world. Certified hygienists know these things. They're widely used, and they've become pretty inexpensive. They were very expensive at first, but now they've become pretty affordable. It's a type of device that you use with your sander or other hand tool that filters, that sucks the air in, vacuums the air that is released right into the containment center as you're doing the work and minimizes what gets out into the atmosphere. You also have to moisten the surface in advance of doing any kind of sanding for obvious reasons. That minimizes the creation of dust. Okay? Minimize dust, suck in the dust that does get out, and you've minimized what's going to be in the atmosphere. You also have to contain the surface. If you're painting, for example, and doing sanding, you have to put a piece of plastic tarp, like you buy when you paint your bedroom or something. But it has to be thicker than the typical cheap stuff you buy that you throw away. You know, you buy one for 99 cents like we always do. It has to be thicker because you want to guard against just inadvertent ripping when you walk on it. So it's got to be a little bit thicker than the cheapest stuff you would buy at the hardware store. But still pretty inexpensive. And you have to tape it. So most of the time it's going to be taped to the floorboard, okay? Or to the wall just above the floor. You have to seal off the vents. You know, just anything that could get into the ductwork and be blown around the house when the air conditioning or the heat comes on. Common sense stuff. It's nothing really terribly complicated or expensive or time consuming. Put some stuff down on the floor, use your HEPA-Vac, spray the surface before you sand it, and seal off your vents. Put a tape up, send people a notice. You know, it sounds like a lot, but if you think about it, it's not all that terribly burdensome.
If it's vacant, you still have to follow.
If it's vacant, you still have to follow the rule. You don't have to send the tenant a notice. Obviously, there's no tenant, but otherwise, yes. Yeah.
I mean, do you put a sign on the outside of the door?
I don't know that you have to put a sign up if it's unoccupied. I don't think you do. You have to notify. Yeah, I don't think you do if it's unoccupied. Yes.
If there is a tenant in the property and this is happening and you know you secluded the room, does that tenant still have the right to move out of that property while the work is being done?
Yes. The question is, does the tenant have the right to be out of the property while the work is being done? Yes, but you have no obligation to provide them another place to live. Okay. Now, the tenant, as we'll see, one of the things the tenant does have the right to do is to, well, we'll come to this later about who has to do the certificate, but I'll just tell you now, somebody who's doing this work has to be certified. But the certified renovator doesn't have to do every bit of the work. You just have to train the people that do it. So let's suppose you're a painting contractor and you have a bunch of people that work for you. Well, you might have the top guy certified. And that person will train the people who do the work and supervise that work. And certain things have to be done by the certified person, like the testing. But the tenant may insist, if the tenant wishes, that the certified renovator be present for all work. Now that's a chore, and I hope the tenants don't typically do that. Because I think for the certified renovator to be present to see that all the containment has been done, the taping has been done, the floor has been sealed, and HEPA-Vacs are available, and so on, is probably enough. But the tenant does have the right to say, no, I want you to be here for all this work. Okay? We'll see how that works. I don't think most tenants are even going to know they have that right, because they're not going to read this stuff. But if they do, I don't think most are going to say, no, I want you present at all times. But they have the right to do that. All right, you've done the work according to the rule, you've sealed it, you've minimized the escape, you've contained it. Now it's time to clean up. Well, how do you clean up? First thing, you take up that tarp that's on the, well, you wipe down the walls. Let's start with that. You wipe down the walls. Well, how much do you wipe down? 40 square feet at a time, no more. And you have to do it, I know this is where you're going to start shaking your heads and all that. You have to do it with a specially chemically treated rag that reacts to lead paint. You do no more than 40 square feet, you wipe it down, and then it reacts and it will turn a certain color depending on the concentration of lead that it picked up. You measure that with a standard, and if it doesn't meet the standard, you have to do it again. You discard the rag you used, you take another one, you wipe it down until it meets the standard. They call it the white glove test or the Swiffer test. You thought Swiffer was a brand name of that thing you... That got its name from a long existing test that this takes its name from. It doesn't work the other way around. This white glove or Swiffer test is done for each 40 square feet of wall until it passes the test, and then you move on. As to the floor, you untape what's down there on the floor, the tarp, you bundle it up in a way so that you try to minimize the escape of anything, and you just throw it in the landfill. The reason you don't have to take it anywhere special is, heck, their kids aren't crawling around in the landfill, and it's just some paint, and it's not going to go anywhere. The landfills are contained. So you just throw it away. And then you wipe the floor down, use the Swiffer test to wipe the floor, and there you are. Okay?